Well, welcome everyone. We have a great honor of having Dr. Denise Martinez joining us again um, this year. Dr. Martinez is currently the Associate Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and serves as Professor of Family Medicine at the UC Riverside School of Medicine since August 2023. Her journey has come full circle as she's returned to the Inland Empire of California, where she spent her formative years to continue her mission to promote diversity, equity in health, education, and practice. So, coming home, there's that song. Before her tenure at UC Riverside, Dr. Martinez was recognized as the youngest medical school assistant associate dean in the country, and ultimately spending 12 years at the University of Iowa School of Medicine in leadership and serving the last two as associate vice president for health parity for University of Iowa Healthcare. Throughout her career, Dr. Martinez dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion and health disparities have garnered awards such as including the 2023 Distinguished Alumni Award for Early Career Achievement at the University of Iowa, the institution's highest award. In 2022, she was also honored as the National Latino Medical Student Association Faculty of the Year Award for her unwavering commitment to mentoring students and her tireless efforts to reduce health disparities and her innovative work in creating pathway programs. She additionally has been named one of the 100 inspiring Hispanic Latinx scientists in America by Salmentor and previously awarded the 40 under 40 for minority health by the National Minority Quality Forum. With a great honor, we welcome back Dr. Martinez.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for having me and the kind introduction. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint. And let's get started. Oops, we're going to start from the beginning. Sorry. You have to forgive me. There we go. Okay. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're coming from. Again, I'm super, super happy to be here. I can't even tell you how always like forever impressed I am with Pre-Med CC and like the amazing guests that are here and the really, really, really top-notch pre-medical advice. I think it's like one of the absolute best resources that exists. So if I know that many of you utilize them. I have heard that many times. And so this is just an amazing opportunity to continue to share and talk, but also really, really, this is like such a great forum to do it. So, so thank you again for this opportunity. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to talk a little bit about leading with purpose and becoming a leader in medicine. Because honestly, it's not something that I was totally thinking about, but I've been a leader in academic medicine now for a while. It's probably closer now to 15 years. And I have learned so much. And we really, really, really do need you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. So I always start with my own journey. And if you've ever seen me talk before, you might have seen me sort of mention a little bit about my own background and history. But I am the first doctor in my family. Nobody in my family has ever done anything like this before. And so I was pretty young when I decided I wanted to be a doctor. It was right here in the very early 80s, where I had these very tragic bangs. But my mom was pregnant with my little baby sister. I think I was 4 here in this picture. I actually now have a 6-year-old son, although he tells me he does not want to be a doctor, but I'm still trying to get him to want to do that. So we'll see what happens. But I really thought it was amazing that there was going to be this OBGYN, this, physician who was going to take my sister and bring her into the world from my mom. And they had given me like one of those little books that talks about like development and human growth, and they showed like the anatomy of like fetal development, and I was like, this is the cool stuff. So this is the stuff I want to study and do. So I would draw pictures of embryos. All of us did some sort of interesting or nerdy thing probably growing up. And this was mine. I was actually obsessed with embryos and it worked out well. I ended up going into family medicine and delivering babies and doing a lot of obstetrics over the years. So it was a prophecy that this was going to happen in my life. But another huge reason why I chose medicine, and when I read personal statements from literally hundreds of students every year as I'm looking through applications, to thousands every year, depending on how many applications I'm screening, a lot of folks, are interested in medicine because they're family. So this is my grandmother, Juanita, and she was an amazing, amazing person who's not with us today, but my family, my background, I am Puerto Rican. My family is though Puerto Rican from Hawaii. So they actually shipped Puerto Ricans in the late 1800s, early 1900s to the Hawaiian Islands to work in the plantations there. So like pineapple, sugarcane, primarily sugarcane was my family. So, and my father actually worked in the pineapple plantations growing up as well. But she worked really hard, had a lot of issues. Um, and sometimes when you do agricultural work, you can have physical ailments that can come from that. And maybe some of you can think about what those ailments are. But one of them is actually lung issues. And we see that now here in California, over in the Coachella Valley, people there are high rates of lung issues related to agricultural things and some of the dust and stuff that comes into the air and that infects the lungs. But with my grandmother, she really didn't have like always the best quality of life. And my aunt said, maybe one day if we could find like a primary care provider who spoke Spanish, something that she felt more comfortable, expressing herself in, and maybe this doctor would understand her better, finding like a Latina physician that would be helpful. And they did. They found a Latina primary care provider, and that actually made a huge difference in her life. She actually had a change of diagnosis, got different treatment, and it improved her quality of life. And she ended up, living and being with us and through her 90s. So I've seen what it takes, and when you have physicians who care about different populations, who might have skills like different language skills or cultural understanding, that makes an impact in the lives of the patients that they work with, and that was a huge inspiration to me as well. So, but being a first generation, somebody who's never done anything like this, I grew up in Rialto, California. So here in the Inland Empire, so inland Southern California, so east of Los Angeles, north of San Diego, so like up inland. And had never met a doctor that was Latino. I didn't know many people who looked like me who did this. I didn't have folks in my family who did this. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But I was like a decently smart student in high school. I don't know how you guys felt. I didn't really work that hard in high school. At least I thought I kind of worked hard, but I actually really didn't work that hard and I did okay. But then I got to college, and I moved to Seattle. And I did school in Seattle at a small liberal arts college. I didn't go the community college pathway, although that's a fabulous pathway to go into medicine. So for those of you who are doing that, that is a really, really, really good pathway to do it, honestly. But I went into my first pre-med class. And there's, always that first class for me was general chemistry. And guess who did terribly in their general chemistry class? Of course, that would be me. I did terribly. And my pre-med advisor, sort of took me aside and he said, just so you know, you will never be a doctor. And I was like, oh no, I guess I need to be a secret pre-medical student now. And so that's what I ended up doing. I was like, my advisor said I could never do this. I don't think I still probably could do this, but maybe I'll just kind of try and maybe we'll see what happens. But I still continued all the way from my first year through some of my second year doing like terribly in a lot of those pre-med courses. Like I just didn't know how to study. I didn't know how to, yeah, do this kind of work and do it well. I ended up going into a pathway program, and maybe some of you have heard of it, the Summer Health Professions Education Program, which is a summer program that a lot of folks do. Their application, I think actually it did just close, so it's not open right now. But it's a program to help folks who might be first generation or come from community colleges, or might come from a lower income background, or might be have interest in serving underserved populations, or might come from an underserved population who want to go to medicine or a health professional career. And so I did that. And, I usually share the story that Dr. David Acosta, just retired actually, but he was the chief of diversity officer of the AAMC. He, was the first Latino physician actually I ever met myself. And that summer, he introduced himself. He looked at that big classroom. I was in the medical school. I'm like, how the heck did I get in this pathway program? I feel like I shouldn't be here. They made a total mistake. Like, I'm a terrible student. Like, what is going on here? And he said, we chose every single one of you because we know one day that you'll become a physician. And as I usually say, I was like, wow, they lie here in this summer program. They lie in these kind of programs. What am I going to do? But actually, I learned a lot. I did well. I finished up very strong in my third and fourth year of college in those upper division courses. I killed the MCAT. I won't lie. I did a fabulous job. And I got into quite a few medical schools, like 7 or 8 medical schools. Um, and in that mentorship and that help really did help my trajectory. So and then, as I usually share, that one summer program that I did, I actually ended up being able to get that at the University of Iowa. So where I had worked for a long time. So after medical school, so I ended up going to Tufts in Boston for medical school, and which was a great decision for me. I had a lot of fun, maybe too much fun in medical school, but it was a really good time. But I learned a lot. I actually enjoyed medical school way more than college, to be perfectly honest, because I won't lie, I don't really love a lot of the basic science stuff. But I really enjoyed learning about like medicine. And so after that, I was doing a couples match at that time, trying to decide where to do residency. And my partner was like, I really am interested in going to Iowa. And I'm like, that does not sound very good to me. And because I'm from the West Coast, so I wasn't exactly sure where Iowa was. And I'm like, is it here? Do you guys know what this state is? Yeah, not Iowa. This one's Idaho. You know what the state is?
Iowa,
This one
Ohio,
is
Ohio.
Ohio. Yes, exactly. And then it's actually here. This is Iowa, right in the middle of the country. And I'm like, this does not sound like where I want to be. But ended up going there and it ended up being a great thing. And I ended up living in a community that was majority Latino, the only majority minority community in the state, which was really cool and really enjoyed my time there. This is a building that was in West Liberty, Iowa, a very small town outside of Iowa City. And I end up again getting in leadership extremely early in my career. So this is the pathway program on one of the pictures of the wonderful students from a number of years ago. That pathway program that helped me get into medical school, I helped to bring that there. But I was asked after I graduated from residency, by my chair, he's like, where do you see yourself in, you know, 10 to 15 years? And I was like, maybe I'll be like a dean of, diversity or health equity or, something like that. Because that's what I've seen before. That's the kind of dean I've only interacted with. And that's like an amazing thing that he did for me. Maybe I can do that for other students. And my chair was like, yeah, 10, 15 years, I think you could get there. But believe it or not, 2 weeks later, so I was a brand new doctor, a brand new faculty member, very, very, very junior. Um, there was a call for an interim associate dean of DEI at the medical school, and I applied. And my chair said, you have to apply for this. This is an amazing opportunity. And I wasn't the only person to apply. Like 7 or 8 faculty applied for it, and I was at an institution then that was around 1,500 faculty. So there were people who had been there a long time who were really interested in this role. But because I had done so much interesting work, not only in undergrad. So I started doing the work that I was wanting to do starting in undergrad. I continued it through medical school. I continued it even in residency. So by the time, even though I was really, really junior, I was a brand new faculty member. Usually people don't get dean positions until they're 15, 20 years into a role as being a faculty member. They said, we're going to take a chance on you at like 29, 30 years old, and we're going to make you an interim associate dean. And I got the role. And so I say that not to brag. I say that mostly because these opportunities do exist. And if the work that you're doing now in the community college or in undergrad actually counts a ton towards these leadership roles that you might want later in your career or in your trajectory. And so that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, how you can continue to build that resume to become a leader, because we genuinely need you to be leaders in healthcare, especially right now. So, so yeah, and my passion is health equity. So how do we make sure that everybody has an equal shot of good health in the US? That's my hope, that's my goal. And that's many of us feel this way in medicine. Although, it's an interesting time right now. We still are pushing to this goal because, this is important. This is important. So where I'm at right now, again, it's super medically underserved. So I work at an institution that we don't have barely any of the number of the primary care physicians that we need. So we have 40 primary care docs in inland Southern California. Per 100,000 people. And we actually need about double that in order to serve California. So, because when I moved to California, I was like, oh, they're probably fine here. Oh no, we are in a major, major doctor shortage. And especially where I live, about an hour and a half outside of LA. And based on, different things, and there can be huge health disparities. Sometimes it's your immigration status, sometimes it's your, potential race or ethnicity, sometimes it's whether someone has, their economic status. So lots of different things can impact health, but we also have a huge disparity in life expectancy here in the Inland Empire. And those are the things that I'm wanting to do and help and work on. So leadership, we need you. We need you. We need lots of folks to become leaders in medicine. And there are so many roles. I honestly, if for those of you who might be in undergrad, I had zero idea, even in med school, often about like all the different leadership opportunities that exist in medicine. And honestly, we need people who have backgrounds like coming from community colleges or have backgrounds of maybe being first in family to ever go to medical school or be in medicine, because those perspectives are typically not there. There are very few people who might have come from that route. And when you have, come from, lots of different types of backgrounds, then you sometimes have a really good understanding of some of the needs of all sorts of different types of communities. You might have other ideas too that might not exist or have not been traditionally tried in medicine. And so having folks in leadership who come from a variety of backgrounds is really, really, really important and really, really not common. So for example, I identify as Latina. There are about 7% of physicians, or it's between 6 and 7% identify as Latino in the United States. So that's nowhere close. And that's the same here in the Inland Empire, where the Latino population is way higher than 50%. And so, there's a lot of people who speak Spanish or, have different cultural needs. And so that disparity is, huge. And then when you get into leadership or in higher education, in medicine, there are about 100,000 faculty in medical schools across the country. And I'm a full professor, meaning I'm at we'll talk about the hierarchy in a second, but I'm at the top of the academic hierarchy. So I've achieved the title of full professor. So and there are 300 of us who are Latinas in the entire country in medical school that are full professors. The same stat is true for those who might come from a lower income background or might be a first generation college student or might have come from a non-traditional background. Like those stats are often like kind of shockingly low. And so there's lots and lots of room for folks with lots of different backgrounds to get into leadership. So there are so many different opportunities. If you want to be a leader in medicine, there are a million types of deans. There are deans of, student affairs. There are deans of curriculum. There's deans of the faculty. There are deans who are doing resident education. So there are many, many, many types of deans if that's something that you have interest in. There's deans like me who help with health equity. There are program directors. There are people who are leading programs of like teaching people how to do a specific thing like family medicine or program director of dermatology. There are CEOs. We need more doctors specifically to be CEOs of hospitals, of health systems, and not just have business people, but people who actually understand medicine and have that really in-depth knowledge of how the systems work. And so we need CEOs, we need chief quality officers, we need faculty, we need chief medical officers. So if you ever look up like all of the different things that exist, there are so, so, so many opportunities. And what you are doing now counts. So again, I never thought in a million years that all these different student orgs that I was a part of, even starting in undergrad, and all the advocacy work that I had done, and all the leadership opportunities that I took, even as a pre-medical student, would have got fast-tracked me into a dean role. But you are actually building your leadership resume starting right now, because everything counts. And I don't think sometimes, at least when I talk to some pre-medical students, they understand that truly like everything counts on your resume. So some folks have to work a lot, which is just the reality of, trying to survive or maybe not having a family who's able to, support them financially during school. But we have plenty of students who will end up taking, interesting roles in, their jobs. And then maybe they end up becoming the lead or training other, folks on how to do the particular role. And so that shows leadership skills and shows people that they have something that they can lead teams. Even things like, I've some of my favorite students have been able to work at coffee shops and, retail and, being able to deal with many types of different people and customer service. And again, training others, all of those things. Like there are ways to word that 100% counts towards that leadership trajectory and things that you can talk about and brag about on your application to medical school and even beyond that. But there are lots and lots and lots of, so everything counts. Everything, every single thing that you're doing. Sometimes people, do teaching, through their, religious, through the mosque or through church or, they do. So again, people don't sometimes realize that everything counts for your resume, like literally everything counts. And students I think sometimes undersell themselves. Like you can accomplish a lot. And some of you have, like, believe me, I read applications all the time and I'm like, oh my God, these students are amazing. How in the world did they accomplish this much stuff? But it is very possible for you to accomplish a lot. So, The folks who are starting to build their resume, both for medical school and for future positions that they might have interest in. And you, again, sometimes you might not know what you want to be, ultimately, and that's okay. But you might be starting to build that resume that shows that you do have some like leadership qualities that are really, really impressive or important. The people who tend to do that when we're looking at applications that we're like, oh my gosh, this person's going to be a real leader, is that they do a lot of just what brings them life. Again, if you ever heard me talk before, we often talk about like the pre-med checklist. And you guys know what the pre-med checklist is, right? So, I must do research, I must do shadowing, I must do, all of the different things. Like I must do this. And you do. There are certain things that you really do need to have on your resume in order to go to medical school, typically. Um, but can you do the stuff on your resume that makes you the happiest? So, for example, I, like was volunteering at a hospital. I started volunteering because I was told, like, oh no, you must volunteer at a hospital. I was like, okay, I'm going to volunteer at a hospital. But for that particular volunteer opportunity, I was just like wiping down tables, which is fine. Believe me, there's nothing wrong with hard work or wiping down tables. But I didn't feel like I was getting, my time was busy. I was working, I was going to school, I was trying to survive as a pre-med student. And I just didn't feel like I was getting a lot out of it. It wasn't bringing me a lot of life. And so I switched. I ended up, finding another different clinical volunteer opportunity where I was able to interact with patients in a way, and it was with pregnant patients because that's always been a passion of mine, and it made all the difference in the world. And then I got to be lead because I got so excited about some of the different opportunities that they had me training the other volunteers and all this kind of stuff. So if whatever you decide to do that's on that pre-medical checklist, make sure you're doing the stuff that makes you happiest. Or if it's not, and again, everything counts on that pre-med checklist as well as just, on your resume. So for me, a lot of my resume, I was interested in, diversity and health equity stuff. And so I ended up advocating for the first, basically like diversity role within the student government of my college that I went to. And and then I ended up being that first role. And then I ended up developing what that role would look like and building communities around that role. And it was just stuff that I liked to do. But because I did that literally as an undergrad, when they asked me to do, a role much later on, like 10 years later on, I was able to say, look, I have a track record of doing this for years, even starting in undergrad. What are you good at? So for me, I'm good at people. That's like that happens to be, and it's what I like. I like people a lot. And so I focused a lot on, building relationships and doing things that were very people centered. Sometimes people are less people centered and they might be more research centered, which can be also people centered, by the way. But it's just finding like, what are the things that you naturally have talent in? What are the things that you enjoy and doing more of that? Um, and then what development opportunities exist? So, for example, some of you might become leaders already as like resident assistants. And as an RA, you're going to get some leadership development. And that all of those opportunities and programs will help further your career because you're going to get some more leadership training on how to be a better leader. Um, if you ever again heard me talk, I think the biggest thing that you can do to further both your application to medical school and your interest in becoming a leader is to network, 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 and network it again. And for good or bad, I just think it's the reality of life. Half of life is who knows you and who likes you. And I would say even more than that, more than half of life is who knows you and who likes you. And that's where so many opportunities come. And so, are you networking? Do people know who you are? Does your pre-health advisor know who you are specifically? Do any physicians know who you are? Do any leaders know who you are? Do the folks at work say, oh my gosh, don't you love so and so? They're so amazing because they know who you are. And so networking is an essential skill. in order to be successful, especially if you're interested in leadership. So if you're able to, one of the best ways to do it are going to like pre-health conferences. I know in California, there's always a ton of pre-med conferences going on. Certainly, I know that there are all over the country, though, there are often pre-health conferences, whether it's through LMSA, SNMA, AMSA, AMWA, all of the different orgs that exist. And then just pre-med societies that put on big conferences. I know, and lots of institutions do. There's always a big one every year at UC Davis. So going to those conferences, finding speakers that you like, that you want to connect with, and going and introducing yourself and building that relationship is something that you have to learn how to do. And so we're going to talk about that in a second. Are there presentations? So are you close to a local medical school? Medical schools all the time, including ours. So at UCR, we constantly are having people present, and it's free and open to the public. Go to a medical school presentation, like, oh, this is a topic that's really interesting to me. I'm just going to go attend it. And then I'm going to meet somebody, who's there, even meet the speaker and try to build that connection. Obviously, with your professors, networking is always a good idea, especially ones that you like or want to connect with or work, whatever you want to do, but you have to network. So, networking, a lot of networking is being able to just introduce yourself, to ask good questions, to potentially ask for an opportunity. Because if you ask for an opportunity with someone, what's the worst thing that they can say to you? No, which is not the worst thing in the world. Even though I love people, I would say I'm naturally a shyer person, even though it doesn't always look that way. But and so sometimes I have two, like, maybe in comparison to my sisters, like I have two very, very extroverted sisters. And so I just always felt a little bit more shy. But one of those things was I just had to like literally get over it. You have to be able to like learn how to put yourself out there. And it can be challenging, but there are lots of potential resources because nobody's going to hand this to you. And so again, we talk about elevator pitches a lot here, or I have. But again, being able to introduce yourself with some confidence, who you are, um, why you're there, your background, your interests, and doing a little bit of research. So let's say, for example, that you're at like a pre-med fair and you're wanting to, network and connect with, a certain, medical school. Well, the first thing that you would do is like take your phone and Google them and find something interesting about that person who's at the booth, or about the medical school in general. So you can ask a really good question to them, and then be able to introduce yourself. So, hi, my name is Denise Martinez. I'm a second year student here at Riverside Community College. I'm really interested in going to medical school. I'm super passionate about working with underserved populations, just because I've seen some of the challenges with healthcare with my family members. I would love to connect with you as I figure out and navigate my college program, and figure out how to best transfer to your medical school, because I'm really interested in what you have to offer. I have a couple of questions. I'd love to connect with you. And done. Like that's a great elevator pitch. And so it's not as hard as people think, but the folks who really struggle and who I'm like, ooh, I'm not sure if they're going to make it, are the ones who don't know how to sort of cultivate these interactions and to sell themselves a bit. The other piece is, at least on the networking side, um,
Can
is
I just add, can I just
yeah.
add one thing?
Oh, of
So
course.
for you guys that are shy or are quiet or think that why this is such an important skill is because as a physician, you're going to walk into a room and within probably 2 minutes, you're going to touch someone in very intimate places. And so if you're not comfortable to introduce yourself and get that information, the other part of it too, that if you think that, meeting a physician or someone that's older and a professional, you get that practice with your friends and your peers. So going to student clubs and being involved in volunteer work and all of those things, those are how you build those skills. These skills are not something you could learn on a TikTok or, a 2 minute, talk or YouTube video. Like you're gonna have to actually like do it. You're not gonna just magically get these skills and I know that like I understand like COVID was a few years ago, but a lot of people have been more comfortable being inside, which it is. I mean, it was what it is, but you still have this opportunity to go out there and you have to put yourself out there, like working a job. There's a lot of like student government, MESA, EOPS. There's all of these things that are out there that you interact with your peers, and that's where you hone that skill. So if you think that it's like if you meet Dr. Martinez at a conference or something, obviously, if you're intimidated by that, you obviously your first try shouldn't be with someone like Dr. Martinez. It should be with your friends and your peers and people that because you could screw up and that, you could screw up with that, which is not going to have big consequences. But that's practice you need to do. I work in the ER and I see like pre-med volunteers that come in, and it's kind of like you only have like very small time to go out there and introduce. Like literally, I have like 20 seconds, and so. But if you're going to be that kind of person that's going to come and stand in the corner, nobody's going to come looking for you. Like you need to go out there. Obviously, don't be annoying. Don't do it while somebody's doing chest compressions, but finding those things. And I think those are all they call them social cues. And so um, and so some of you are saying, "Oh, I can't really find like a mentor." It's like, great. Like, how do you know how to approach them? Because even though mentors are out there to help you as a mentee, you have certain responsibilities as a, person.
100%. Love that. And amen and amen. Absolutely. Um, the other piece is, and say, yeah, I love that. Learning how to ask good questions to folks that you're trying to connect with. And so I've done this exercise before, so we'll do it again. In a second, I'll show you a picture of one of my favorite doctors. But learning how to connect and ask good questions to folks you're trying to connect with is really, really important. And so asking open-ended questions and sharing your passion, like who you are, what you're interested in, not making questions defensive. So, for example, I've had pre-meds who are trying to connect with me, and they'll be like, "Oh, they'll even do a step further." So, for every person that you ever want to connect with, number one, what do? You use your smartphone and Google them, and you find a little bit about them because all of us are Googleable, and there's information about us online. And some I would have a student who looked me up, and which is the right thing to do, and then they would say, Dr. Martinez, I see that you used to, or that you at the time I would you run the free clinics, the student-led free clinics as the medical director. And I was like, oh yeah, let's connect and talk about that. I love talking about, the student-led free clinics. But then she said, but why do you do it like this and not like this? And I'm like, ooh. And then my palms start like sweating and I get really anxious because I'm like, it's making me feel defensive. And even though she was just trying to connect, it was sort of doing it in a like defensive way, even though that's not what her intention was. And so learning how to ask questions, but not make people feel defensive, sort of framing things in a positive way is always, the best way to do it. So, and I will give you some examples here in a second, but as my mom says, like you catch more bees with honey than with vinegar. So you want to use a little honey to, build that connection. And then know what level of person you should ask a question to. So for example, and we'll talk about the hierarchy in just a second. But like I used to when I was in teaching that summer program for undergraduate students, community college students, pathway students who wanted to go to medical school. They might not have much time, face to face with me and to connect. But when they did, if they would come up to me and say, "Oh, what time is class on Tuesday?" Is that a good use of their face time with me? Absolutely not. Because number one, they can look that up themselves. And number two, if you're going to have FaceTime with somebody that you really want to connect with, who probably doesn't have a lot of time, to be perfectly honest, you want to not be like, oh, who else could you ask that question to? You probably could have asked it to a peer. You probably could have asked it, to yourself and say, do I know this answer already? You could have asked it maybe to a TA or, something like that. And so you want to know, like, if you have the ability to connect with somebody, you want to only connect with them on the things that they can are specific to. So for me, it would be, be able to be a mentor or advisor or help with a specific thing. And if that makes sense. So I'm pulling up Dr. Limo Rocha. So she is the director she's the chair actually of the admissions committee here at UCR School of Medicine. She is an amazing child psychiatrist. I think it's her birthday today, so I'm gonna shout out to her. Happy birthday as well. But she is amazing. And I just did a little Google search. So she has a faculty appointment at UCR, but she also works for Kaiser Permanente as a child psychiatrist. And this was her bio on her website. And if you looked her up and you met her at a conference, she's very friendly. She's amazing, amazing. If you ever get the chance to see her and connect, she's a really good person to connect with. What questions, after looking at her bio, would you ask her? And if you wouldn't mind just like sharing that in the chat, look at the bio, think for a second. What would you ask her if you met her when you're trying to connect with her? Yeah, so you could ask her about her experience at UCR. You could say, hi, Dr. Rocha, I see that you went to undergrad at UCR and now you're the, director or the chair of the admissions committee. Tell me a little bit about your journey. What was your experience like? Great. That's how I would have asked that question. Excellent. What other questions? So yeah, so that's a great question. So ask her about her passion for whole person healing. Yeah, that's a very interesting thing that she had said. I would say, Dr. Rocha, tell me, I saw that you have a passion for whole person healing. What does that mean to you? I would love to hear more about that. That's how I would ask that question. Um, Excellent. Having an MPH in health policy and management seems like an amazing knowledge base to have. Has that impacted the way you provide care and service as a dean at UCR? Excellent. I love the way that you worded that question. Hello, Dr. Rocha. What barriers have you overcome incorporating whole person healing in underserved communities? You guys got this. Those are really, really good questions. I love those questions. And I think she would really connect with that. So yeah, those are some excellent, excellent examples. Um, you know, what would be some bad examples? Maybe that's always helpful too. I would say, why are you doing this instead of probably why are you doing this and this? I see you're doing this. Oh, actually, I was doing a practice with another group before, and she had gotten her MPH because she was in something called the Prime program, which is a really cool program through the UC system. But you could say like, well, how do you use your MPH now exactly? And I was like, oh, that's just not the way I would say it. I would say something like, oh, I see you got your master's of public health as well as your MD. How has that impacted your career? So again, it's just how to word things to make things like give, yeah, make it sound less biting, if that makes sense. Any questions about that? Okay, but you guys came up with some really good questions. Um, the other thing that I always share, because I had no idea about this when I was an undergraduate student, is something called the hierarchy of medicine. And this is not an endorsement. I think some of this is a little bit not good and kind of stupid, to be perfectly honest. But there is a huge hierarchy in medicine, that there are levels and steps of doctors in importance. And actually, in a hospital, you'll see sort of doctors walk down the hall in like the hierarchy, or in a noon conference where people see sort of sit around the table in order of hierarchy, which is like crazy. But understanding that as a pre-medical student, one of the things that's really important is using the correct titles, and actually starting at intern for you. Sorry, this is a slide that is not correct. Intern through senior attending, you would address as doctor. So interns are, uh, so I'll start at the bottom. So pre-meds, can you see yourself? You're right there. And then you have first and second medical students who are shadowing, third and fourth medical year medical students who are often like on the clinical rotations. You have the sub-intern who's a fourth year practicing to be that intern, which is their first year out of medical school. So you have the intern, so that's a physician who's their first year out practicing medical school. So they're called the intern in residency, which is the bottom of the doctor hierarchy. Junior residents, so towards the early part of their residency training, senior residents towards the later part of their residency training, chief residents and fellows, so those are towards the last year or two of their training. Then you have junior attending physicians, so physicians who are assistant or associate professors, those are lower titles in the medical hierarchy. And then you have senior attending physicians, those are folks in the who have full who are full professors, including myself. So that's the entire hierarchy. And so understanding that sometimes is helpful, because as a pre-med student, knowing that you are lovingly, we think you're important. That's why we spend our time, having these conversations with you all. But you're on the very bottom of the hierarchy. And so if you introduce yourself to anybody from an intern up, you want to use correct titles. You want to call people doctor, professor, whatever, because those are things that are important in the hierarchy.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm also going to add is that make sure that even if someone who tells you to address them by their first name, that's great, but you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know when to address them by their title or by their first name. And so there are people that would say, "Oh, call me so and so," and it's like, great, but you do it in front of a patient or other people, it's not appropriate. And so what Dr. Martinez said, basically from an intern on, it's like they've earned that title, and so use that, use their title. But the other thing is also, I think this is like, but I also think that for women, we tend to call women much faster by their first name. I mean, I've seen this at my work. We've had attendings who are women who get called by their first name, and we have interns that are male that still get called by their title. And so, yeah, so just always, 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 where you at as a pre-med student, always address them by their title.
Yeah, no, thank you. Those strong thoughts and words too. You're so right. Emails, so that networking and navigating emails. And I didn't include it in this particular presentation, but in some of my presentations, I include all the fun and slash terrible emails I get from undergrads every year. Because sometimes I get, or pre-medical students, sometimes I get really, really bad emails from pre-medical students who are trying, but like they don't know the email etiquette, and their emails are going to 100% get ignored by people that they're trying to connect with, based on how they emailed. And so understanding how to build that resume, how to find and ask for opportunities. A lot of times, sometimes it comes in person, and sometimes it comes through email, how you're able to do that. And sometimes you meet somebody in person and then you follow up with email. And so understanding how to write a correct email is really, 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 really important. And nowadays we have Chat GPT, and I can't even tell you how much I love Chat GPT. And sometimes that can be very helpful in composing an email. And so emails are always more formal. You always want to use the correct title. Again, like for me, it would be Dean Martinez, Dr. Martinez, Professor Martinez, whatever. Any of those are fine, but you want to use like a formal title when you're trying to do an email. And you want to ask for an opportunity. So you'd say, dear, Dr. Rocha, I had an amazing time meeting you at that conference where you were recruiting for UCR School of Medicine. Would you be willing at some point to meet with? Then I would share a little bit about myself. As you might remember, I'm a second year medical or a second year student at Riverside Community College, and I have a passion for X, Y, or Z. I would love to connect with you if you would be willing to have a brief Zoom with me for 30 minutes or meet in person or whatever, and asking for a potential opportunity through that email. Because again, what's the worst thing that they can say? And then you must have an email signature. And so if you don't know about email signatures, do a Google search, create an email signature that's professional. I go through that in other presentations, but that is also important. But nowadays, like if you wanted to create a good email asking for an opportunity, there are awesome, like I would put in, I'm currently like in ChatGPT, I'm currently a pre-medical student at this school, or I'm doing a post-bac or, whatever it is. I'm trying to email, Dr. Denise Martinez, who is a associate dean at UCR School of Medicine. I will want to share a little bit about myself, put a little bit of share about yourself. I would like to ask for an opportunity to connect for maybe talking about my application. And then sometimes that will compose like a decent email, and then you can like edit it a little bit. So there are a lot more tools than there used to be to create these these opportunities. Um, then it's a must. So please do emails in the best way you possibly can, because those people who do an email, they do their a little bit of research, they know about the person that they're talking to, they're super professional. The chances that you're going to get a yes go skyrocket, which is always important. Although for those of you who might email me, just so you know, sometimes I'm in email. I was just on vacation last week, so I'm still like literally 800 emails behind. So sometimes you have to give folks a couple of weeks of grace, depending.
Yeah, don't be that person that emails them like the next day. Like usually, I think I've heard it's like 12 days
I would say
working.
that. Yeah, I would say that. And lovingly, again, um, uh, yeah. And sometimes it's not that I'm not trying to answer, at least for myself. Like I'm in clinic 2 days a week. I was gone for a week. I probably get on average 300 emails a day. I'm not even joking. And so it just takes me a while to kind of like get through them. But so give folks, or especially physicians or deans or other folks, a little bit of grace. But oftentimes they will get back to you.
And don't write 7 pages.
That is true. Keep it short. A paragraph is
What
perfect.
is it? What is it called? Keep it simple. Wait, it was a,
Short and
it was
sweet.
yeah. And the reason why is just like they get a lot of emails, and so just it's like oof, you know.
100%. Um, be helpful. So one of the ways that we have found, like students that I've worked with that are like, we will do everything in our power to make sure that this person gets into medical school, is the students who are helpful, to be honest. And so for example, like I have 4 pre-medical students who are interns in my office who help with a ton of different like activities that we have to do. And they're vital to us. And the students that are like enthusiastic and so willing to help are the ones that were like, oh my God, I will write the best letter of recommendation in the world for you to go to medical school. Or even when I have students that there's one student recently that I was talking to. He's an amazing student, and he's really passionate about serving a certain specific underserved community in medicine, something that he particularly identifies with. And we were starting this new curriculum in our medical schools, particularly for this community. And so he was like, he's an undergrad. He's like, he found out about it. And what he does is he creates for the faculty member who is trying to start this curriculum, he would create the notes. He would create the Zoom meetings. He would sort of do all the legwork to like make it happen. But without him, he was kind of like the administrative glue to like push this forward. But now, because he was really helpful, like every single faculty member is like, you are so amazing. We will do anything in order to get you into medical school. And so like sometimes I'll have students, for example, email me and they want to meet, or they're like, I'm happy to email your assistant to help create a Zoom. So that we're able to meet more easily. I'm happy to, meet you at a time that's convenient, or, just doing things that are helpful, if that makes sense. That when it's not like, well, this, I just have needs and you need to help me, but you're actually like putting forth some effort to help others and make our lives a little bit easier. We're just like, oh yeah, whatever you want, whatever you need. If you're in a job working in an emergency room, or a scribe, or you're a medical assistant or a phlebotomist, and you're like, hey, I would love to help you with this thing, we're like, oh my God, thank you for being so helpful. Those are the folks who really, really go a long way and are often given opportunities in leadership. So again, I, starting very early off in my career in undergrad, in medical school, would say, hey, there's these ideas that I have. There's faculty members who are passionate about it. Let me help them make some of these pieces happen. And then it would just skyrocket into more opportunities. So again, being helpful is one of the best ways that you can show yourself as a leader, believe it or not. And then get professional development. So again, sometimes like in certain leadership positions and clubs and student orgs, in RA training, in all of those things, you sort of learn and continue to work on your skills to become a leader. So I've had tons of professional development from undergrad through medical school as a dean. Like there are actually courses and like conferences that I was sent on to teach me how to be a better leader and a better dean. All of those things exist because, every step of your career trajectory, there are more opportunities to learn how to become a leader and to do better. And so, if there, I would, there's so many different resources. I know Pre-Med CC has done an amazing job of like often compiling those resources, but same thing with work. Sometimes you have a job and they say, hey, would you guys, there's another, skill that you can learn. Like always get any sort of thing that can teach you how to do better or do more is always a good thing. And then my last point is learning how to promote yourself. And it's really hard. Like sometimes when I do practice sessions with pre-medical students who are applying to medical school to talk about themselves a little bit when they are going to be interviewing, they struggle. Like sometimes it feels like bragging, like when you talk about the cool stuff that you're doing. But it's not. It's promoting yourself. It's having people understand who you are, your passions, and what you're doing really well. Doctors, we're really, for the most part, a lot of us are really good at promoting ourselves. And even the humblest, sweetest, kindest, people who you think, are not just like narcissistic, bragging people. But you got to learn how to promote yourself so that you're given more opportunities and you're seen as a leader. So for example, a bunch of students and I went to a conference for the California Academy of Family Physicians. It was an advocacy conference, and the students are amazing. And so, there was an email. Some of the students sent an email to the um, uh, was thanking the faculty members who went with them, and then sent it to one of the leaders of the medical school and saying, hey, we went to this academy and it was an amazing opportunity. And then instantly it went up on the social media for the medical school and they were recognized as leaders and people are like, oh, that was so cool what you did. And so if you're doing something really cool or something that you're proud of, or you just got an award, send a picture of it to your pre-health advisor, send it to your student org newsletter and say, this is what our chapter just did. Can you feature us? Show and promote like all the cool stuff that you're doing. People won't think you're bragging. They're going to be impressed with the work that you've done. Promote it to your mentors. Every award that I ever got, I will send it back even still to my mentors and be like, hey, I just was recognized for this. And they'll be like, we're so proud of you. But then again, it jogs people's thing that Denise is working really hard. She's continuing to do really good things. When opportunities come, we're going to think about her. People need to know about the good things that you're doing, and there's nothing wrong with self-promotion. Oh, sorry, this really is the last slide. Power of gratitude. So, when people are helping you out on your leadership journey and your journey to medical school, you have to thank them often, because it's people want to be recognized. Again, people like people who like them. So, it is what it is every time. So if I spend 30 minutes with you, talking about your pre-med journey and seeing how I can best help you to make sure that you can be successful in your application, you should send me a thank you follow-up email, period. Saying that was really kind of you to spend 30 minutes of your time. And again, not that I'm the most important thing in the world, but 30 minutes of my time, volunteering my time, is like, at least in dollars, worth about, if I was seeing patients, that could be upwards of like $1,000 worth of time sometimes, that of like the hospital could charge for the, I don't see $1,000, but the hospital could charge for my time, seeing, a really complex patient. So it's a big deal for a physician or someone to use their time to help you. So sending somebody gratitude, thanking them for their time, thanking them for their willingness. Every single time, your pre-health advisor, thank you so much. I really appreciate the fact that you're still helping me on this journey. That was really, really, yeah, I'm just very appreciative. For folks who I write really, strong letters or I've mentored over the years, at the end, I often get handwritten thank you notes. I keep all of them. I have boxes and shelves of handwritten thank you notes. And it costs like nothing or almost nothing, but it means the world to me. And so if somebody really is helping you out, send them a handwritten note. I get gifts a lot too, but it's not necessary. And it doesn't have to be super expensive, but it can be really powerful. I've had some people go on Etsy and write, a little plaque for me that was probably, 10 or 20 bucks. And that said something about, Dr. Martinez, thank you so much for your mentorship. And I cry and I put it on my wall. And it forever means something to me. And I will do anything for that person. It's not just that they gave me a gift, but that I see the appreciation. So know that showing gratitude, for your mentors, for the folks that are help you, is a huge part, of this life going forward. So anyways, those are some of my tips and tricks, but I am happy to stop right there.
So we have one question, and if we don't have any more, then we're gonna go bye-bye. But so this question, how did you get through undergrad as far as guidance and following the right path for your major? I'm struggling with proper guidance at my school, and I'm planning to double major in human biology and neuroscience, but I'm uncertain about the classes at the moment. My advisor told me to do research instead of guiding me properly.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting question. And this is my opinion. I mean, there's lots of different opinions out there. But I can just give you my experience at working at a couple of medical schools. To be perfectly honest, and you just want to choose the major that you like the most, where you like the classes the most, where you feel most passionate about. Medical schools, in my experience, don't care that much about your major. And sometimes people are like, oh, if I do neuroscience or if I do this, like it looks better and it's so much harder and it's really going to show, people how much better I am than people who just do, human physiology or biology or, whatever. No, we don't care. We genuinely don't care. At my current institution, we care like literally zero. We don't even talk about the major whatsoever. And so, but if people are, doing majors that maybe they're less passionate about and are really, really hard and their GPA is tanked, that can impact whether they get into medical school because we actually do care about the GPA. And so my advice always is we don't care that much. So double majoring. If you love it, if you're passionate about it, fab, do it. If it's not something you're like, I have to do, the schools are not lovingly it's not going to make that much difference to the school, whether you're double majoring or not. But the more important thing is that your GPA is retained, and that you're getting all the activities that you need to have like a robust CV or resume. Because a double major with not the best GPA and not a lot of activities is not going to get you into medical school. So that would be my biggest advice around that.
And also you have to understand too, double major, that means you're going to spend extra time and it's going to cost you extra money. And it's really not, nobody's going to give you a cookie to, for doing double major. If you're, choose one. But also you're not like, if you're really interested in human biology, great. And if you want, you can take one class in neuroscience. But some of the requirements, you can't double dip and you have to complete them all. So you're gonna have to take like 20 units a quarter, which is insane. So, and then the part of like your advisor saying like do research, yeah, research is really important. And we're doing a workshop on how to meet with your advisor. Um, if you're showing up and you want your advisor to do all the research, and that's like not a really good thing to do. And so, because that's not their job to break things down for you. You need to spend a little bit of time, saying, okay, like these are the things that I have to take, and a lot of information's already posted. But but yeah, because nobody's gonna care about your life and your future as much as you do. And if you expect someone else to do it for you, they're going to tell you to go look, because and people are going to give you bad advice. So that's why you have to be good at the research, because then you could compare it. And um yeah, so I would just say, like, why double major? Like, that was the first question that I would ask. um this person wants to know, what advice do you have for students who are interested in UCR School of Medicine, and what do you look for potential first year students?
Yeah, I mean, so specific to UCR School of Medicine, because we're a school that's really focused on underserved populations, like that's literally the mission of our institution. And so you have to show connection to wanting to serve underserved populations. And that's typically, and you have to like, we're one of those schools that it's sort of, you have to not just say it, you have to live it, you have to show it. And so, whether that's volunteering opportunities or clinical opportunities, those are the things that sort of prove to us like, oh, they're really interested in service to underserved populations. And so we look very heavily on volunteer experience and clinical experience. Every school is different. Some schools focus a lot on research, or schools focus a lot on other things. But I would say the thing, because of the mission of our school, that is the thing that we're going to look at really, really closely in specific.
This is another question. How do you get exposure as an adult student with an undergraduate degree? I have a BA in psychology and I'm trying to get exposure in medicine. I've not gotten into a formal post-bac yet, but I'm hoping to get meaningful volunteer experience while navigating what post-bac methods would work for me.
Yeah, it's there's lots of different ways, and I know I know pre-med CC probably has a lot of different ways as well, but oftentimes folks can do volunteering. Some of the best ways that I know that people can get really involved in some meaningful clinical experience that will get some great exposure is volunteering in free clinics or low-cost clinics spaces. So that's something that I often recommend because that can, get an opportunity to start to connect with folks who are looking for people who are really interested in volunteering and maybe being someone who is steady and connected to doing it. And that's a pretty low barrier depending on where you live and all the different clinics that do exist. I know here we have quite a few. So that's a great way to do it. Hospital volunteering, it varies. Some hospital volunteering programs, again, it can be like wiping down tables, but it's not super meaningful. Some have formal programs that have a lot more meaningful experience. And so sometimes that's why I like the if there isn't like a really strong formal program through a specific hospital, which you can usually look at like your local, hospitals that exist online. That's why the free clinic systems tend to work a little bit better. Usually there's a place that you can say, hey, here's how to volunteer. Do you have any thoughts around that as well?
No, we actually did a whole talk on getting clinical experience. So, like, you have a BA, so you have the superpower that, hey, you're actually like, so a lot of jobs, clinical research could do that. the other part of it too, if you're like from certain communities like Latino, African American, there's a lot of health systems that are now training community health workers and
That's
on
true.
also doulas. And so
Yes.
if like, um so like I know someone who trained as a doula and I think it's only like 30 hours and you get like that certification, but they ended up like working for the our hospital, which is like an urban area, and then they ended up like they became really good, and then now they're working as a private doula on the side, and they make like 3-4 grand
It's
with
pretty lucrative.
helping,
Yeah.
yeah, with helping these like um these you know moms that are like like make she was telling me she makes like 4 or 5 grand to be a doula for, and I was like, wow, that's a pretty good gig, while also like doing the work for where she's passionate about. So like that's kind of a side gig, but there's a lot of things you could do if you have a BA. You have like you're an adult, and there's a lot of things you could do. Um, I'll put that link in that workshop that we did, because that we did a whole breakdown of like different things you could do. Um, which I don't know. I mean, if you're an older adult, like that's your superpower, that you're going to be taken more seriously than an 18-year-old walking through the door. So that's I think that's a plus. That's what I've always used personally because I'm older. So it's kind of like, but also, yeah, there is, and obviously they're not going to ask, someone who is older and as a BA to do there's a lot of things you could do um, that you could use as your superpower. And I don't know what this person is. So, the other question is somebody wants to know, how did you pay for medical school? How did you balance your life while in medical school?
Yeah. So life still worked out fine for me, but I was a little interesting and silly. I guess I don't have any regrets, but I had gotten like almost a full ride scholarship to a certain medical school in the middle of the Midwest, and I was like, oh, I can't live in the middle of the Midwest. And then here I ended up living for 15 years in the middle of the Midwest. So I ended up choosing of all the medical schools the most expensive in Tufts at that time. I don't know what it is right now, but it was the most expensive medical school in the country. And I had some scholarship. I had no parental help, and I had lots of student loans. So I graduated with quite a few student loans. I ended up which again, if you get into medical school, depending on legal status, because that can be a little bit more tricky, but they're going to give you enough loans to like actually, if you don't have other means to pay for medical school, whether scholarships or other things, and sometimes you end up getting more financial aid depending on what happens through your trajectory, but they're going to make sure that you have enough loans to pay for the school and for living costs. Like that's just, historically, you've been a good investment in that space. So I was mostly student loans, and so I'm getting close. Only a couple more years left. But yeah, basically, paying loans. I had something called a primary care student loan. So since I knew I was going into primary care, I was able to convert all my loans into a low interest loan at the end of my medical school, which did save me a lot of money per month. But despite having loans, because sometimes people feel like, oh, you can't live life if you have loans. So I did have loans, but I was able to, still live life. I've bought multiple homes. I own a home in California, which is an amazing thing to do, and a feat because it's very expensive here. Um, I've been able to help retire my parents who weren't able to probably retire if I didn't, help them out. All sorts of different things while still paying my student loans off as a physician. So you are going to make a, decent salary as a physician and often are able to pay those loans back. But there's lots of ways to finance a medical education. That was the way that I had to do it.
And you've never starved, and you never,
No, we've lived a great life. Yeah.
and you're able to like, take vacation and buy a
Oh
car,
yeah, we own cars. We can go on maybe too
and
many
you have a roof,
vacations.
huh?
Yeah, maybe too many vacations. I just got back from Dubai. It was amazing. We're good. But I don't have any like credit card debt. I don't have, and I just pay that check every month and there it is.
And but and I think if you're comparing it to a tech CEO, yes, you're underpaid, but you know, no, not
Yeah,
ev- no, I think
no,
it's only relative. Yeah.
it is relative. I mean, in California, yeah, no, I mean, it's still I'm a family physician, although I'm in leadership, but like we still make hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. So we live fine.
Yeah, and unemployment for physicians so low that they don't keep the staffs. Um, so this is another question, and I think again, this is wanted to ask this one. What are some interesting majors you have seen as a for from first year medical students who did not do biology or neuroscience?
What are some interesting majors? I mean, some people do really things that are like way out, like they'll do like, art or dance or, some sort of humanities thing. Some students do engineering, and I guess one of the things that I would caution about with engineering, so if somebody gets a 3.0 in engineering, that's like amazing.
Amazing.
That's like way top tier because the classes are so hard, and that's like typically way above average. And they would get a job in engineering, no problem with a 3.0. A 3.0 for medical school isn't fab, unfortunately. And so sometimes people, again, it doesn't, honestly,
It's interesting to you, like if most important thing, what's interesting to that person, not
exactly, it
don't
doesn't
live your
matter.
life about wanting to see what people think it's interesting. Like,
Yeah, it doesn't matter to the school. And so if it matters to you, for me, like, I was a bio major because I was trying to get through undergrad in 4 years and I knew I just wanted to be a doctor. And honestly, I got into lots of medical schools as a bio major because I got all my pre-meds done within my major. And I didn't even do the BS. Like there was a BS and a BA. I did the BA because I didn't want to do an extra project. Because honestly, again, the schools don't care that much. So just do what you enjoy. If it brings you life to be sociology or dance or art or something that's not just like a great, do it. That's fab, but it's not going to make much of a difference on your application. And I would stay cautious of being like, I'm going to do super extra hard engineering unless you're actually planning on doing it and you're using your engineering degree within medicine. It doesn't matter.
yeah, it's again, it's to your individual, if you're doing it for some mission committee, the only thing they're going to care about is if you do really bad on your grades. That's going to be what's going to, so, and I mean, and some people are really good at engineering, and God bless you, but I thought about doing bioengineering for about a minute, and then after I took physics, I'm like, nope, that's quite all right. And you got it, and it's a lot like the more like exotic you get, the longer it's going to take you. So the more expensive. But um, this person wants to know. I currently work in a clinical inpatient setting, and I have had various leadership opportunities. I enjoy both, and I truly enjoy the direct patient care, working with my patients. Did you blend the two, and did you find yourself sacrificing more time to leadership versus patient care?
Oh, that's a really good question. So that is the interesting piece. So if you decide to go into leadership, it does potentially take you out of the clinic. Not always. So sometimes leadership is staffing residents or other folks in clinics and seeing them with learners. But it's taken me out of clinic. So I've gone as little as 1 day a week in clinic. I've been as much as 3 days a week in clinic, depending on what leadership role I've had. And so right now I'm 2 days a week in clinic. So I see patients full time, 2 full days a week. And then 3 days a week, I'm a dean. I'm a dean all the time, I suppose. But I'm not doing clinical care those 3 days. And that's been pretty good for me, to be honest. My last role, I was 1 day a week, and it really I wasn't doing as nearly as much patient care. And you know, I think it's all a balance. So like I love my patients. I love the clinical piece. I really, really, truly enjoy it. I also think that there's things that I'm passionate about, and there's ways that I know that I can change medicine that are really important as well. And my with my current role, there's a lot of work that I do that I would volunteer. If I was just a clinician and didn't have a leadership role, I would volunteer to do some of the stuff that I did without paying me. So hopefully now my school does not see that because it's stuff that I actually care about. And so, but now, like, instead of doing those things after hours, um, although I do a lot after hours, to be honest, like we are here right now, or in evenings or whatever, I get to do it as my part of my day job. And so for me, that's a good balance. At least especially at Iowa when I was there, and still at UCR as well, but like every physician, nearly every physician who is in leadership also retains some sort of practice. And I would say the smallest amount is a half day to a day a week, but sometimes it's 2 days, full 2 days. So and it ebbs and flows depending on what leadership position you do. But for me, this has been perfect, chef's kiss, perfect balance.
Yeah, I always get stuck doing leadership things, and I have this quote: "If it's to be, it's up to me." Like I just, like at work, I do the schedule. It's like, yeah, because I don't want somebody to screw it up, so I'd rather do it. So so yeah, I mean, I think like there's a burden with leadership too that like things need to get done, and you might as well do it instead of like not doing it right. So, and that I guess has to do with also a little bit of you know ego, but again, that's how does this is also another one. How does a top medical school like Hopkins care about undergraduate schools?
Um, I don't want to answer for Hopkins because I've never worked at Hopkins. I can only give you my gestalt from having friends and colleagues in those spaces. My sense is that it does matter. So my I've I had a lot of close relationships with folks when I was in at Tufts at Harvard Medical School. My partner at that time was at Harvard Medical School, so and I would say quite a few of the students um, went to fairly prestigious undergrads or Ivies or that sort of thing, but there were a number that didn't. So perfect um, it wasn't a perfect one-to-one that if you went to Yale, then that's the only way that you could get into Harvard Med, or if you went somewhere else. I have known medical students who've gone to, state institutions and have gotten to Hopkins. I have known probably I've worked with maybe six or so students who've gotten into Hopkins, and none of them were at the Ivies. And so it's not everything, but if you want to go to like a super, super prestigious program, like your level of outstanding has to be pretty high. Although possible, not impossible. It does take some effort, but it does help, I think, if you come from an institution that has high reputation, but it's not everything.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to listen to Michael Gladwell, he talks really about that. And I think that if you go to a state CSU and you get a 4.0, or if you go to, I don't know, Stanford and you have a 3.0, which one do you think is going to look better? So, so taking that into consideration too, as well, is that even though prestige is a big thing on the US news, like it may not be the best place for you. So, you know, this is another one. Do the medical schools look at older students just starting school differently than being a younger student?
Honestly, at least my experience has been students who are older are typically like really appreciated, to be honest. Um, Oftentimes we get some really, really interesting stories and really great career trajectories from folks who might be non-traditional. So that meaning like not coming direct from undergrad. And there tends to be a maturity, obviously, that comes from having sort of lived some life outside of, just doing school full time. And so, no, I mean, I would say, our school age can really, really range from, obviously early 20s through 50s, to be honest. 30s, there's quite a few folks usually in their 30s in medical school. The 40s is not out of the picture by any stretch of the imagination. And yeah, no, in general, like it's only seen as a positive. We actually often more worry about the reverse, that if somebody's coming straight through, that they might lack maturity.
So this is their pre-med advisor told them that going to a CSU is worse than a UC, so they should transfer to a UC than a CSU, for UC Riverside School of Medicine.
Um, I my my thought around that is just do you. That you need to be in a place, if you're in a place that you think that you can thrive, that you have the tools and resources at the institution that would make sense for you, if it makes sense to your family because of proximity or any of those things, that wouldn't matter as much to me, at least in my experience at UCR.
This is another person asking, would you recommend a gap year?
Yes. In my opinion, and I did not think that way. Like I was looking when I was in college, although wasn't competitive enough to do it at the time. I was looking at all the programs where you didn't even have to graduate from undergrad. There was more then, there are very few now, in order to get straight through medical school. So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be in my late 20s by the time I'm done with this. I'm going to be so old. Now, as someone in their mid 40s, I'm like, oh my God, what was I even thinking? And so, I used to think that like you just had to rush through all of this and be done as quickly as possible so life can start. But life is now. You're living life now. The folks who go straight through tend to be pretty burnt out, to be honest. And the folks who apply their junior year, it really, really thank you so much. I'll take it. But yeah, it really like it's hard to do. And so and one gap year is not exactly even a year off, because that entire year you're actually doing the application for medical school, which literally it's kind of like a part-time job. So if so one gap year is awesome. Two gap years is also fab. It's not uncommon. I'd say the majority of folks now do it. And it's something I think that nobody regrets, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think for some people, gap year, it's kind of like cost and making money and all of those things that are. I think this is the last question we're going to ask. Is AI being implemented in your field of work?
100%. It's crazy. And it's going to get more and more. And we'll see how it's going to change medicine, because 100% is going to change medicine. But already, the the scribing apps that are on the phone, that are being rolled out at a lot of institutions or on the computer, where the AI will listen and be able to help write, the history of present illness. So part of the clinical note is happening more and more. So helping with some of the burden. AI is now in Epic. So Epic is like the biggest electronic medical record that most systems use.
And you
Um,
curse that every day.
oh my God. It's very interesting. But AI is, even for like messages we get from patients, it's already pre-composing some of the stuff or language that we would potentially say back to the patient. We just have to edit the message. So yeah, it's so funny because I feel like I didn't go to medical school that long ago, but it has been more than 20 years. And when I was in med school, there were no smartphones. The iPhone 1 came out like towards the end of my medical school career, and like one of my friends got it, and I was like, oh my God, an iPhone. It was like the craziest thing that existed. Um, and but now, and so we all had these like a little million tiny books that we had quickly, if the attending would ask us a question, like my neck hurt because my white coat was filled with these tiny little like pharmacy books or drug books or different kind of books, like antibiotic books. And we quickly had to like pull it out and flip through it and come up with the answer. And now like there's so many like more clinical applications that you can ask questions to with data and evidence on like a specific clinical question. So it's crazy how quickly it's going. And it'll be very interesting how that changes medical education.
All righty. Well, we're gonna let you go because it's time and we can't keep you longer, or we're gonna have people looking for us. And thank you again for making time and coming. And post vacation, which I think is always hard to get back to.
Of course. No, this is amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Did you go to the Louvre?
We didn't, but yeah, we went. It was Dubai is really interesting, but it was super fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again.